This is by far the most fun and unique build I have ever created. It just outright gives you the powerful effects of Strand while simultaneously making you invisible. And if that wasn't enough, it also suspends everything. On top of all of that, Bungie just announced in the latest TWAB that they are buffing Strand next season, so all Strand builds are just going to outright get significantly better. I just recently made an infinite suspend Strand video, which I'll link in the description below if you want to check that out. And if you enjoy the video, it would mean a lot to me by simply subscribing or sharing the video with a friend. So what is this build and how does it work? The main focus of this build is Assassin's Cowl exotic head paired with the Strand grapple. Assassin's Cowl exotic trait, Vanishing Execution. Powered melee final blows grant invisibility and restores a portion of health and shields. Finishers and final blows against more powerful targets increase the duration of the invisibility and the amount of health and shields restored. Strand grapple. Weave a grappling hook and quickly pull yourself forward. Grappling to a tangle immediately recharges your grenade energy. During and shortly after grappling, your melee attack deals area damage and unravels targets. And while yes, the grapple mechanic is technically a grenade, the final melee part is registered as a powered melee. So you use your grapple to get close to an enemy, then you hit your melee, and if you kill that enemy, you will turn invisible, heal yourself, and create a tangle. And if you don't kill the enemy right away, they should be low enough to get a finish, which will also turn you invisible and heal you. And if you created a tangled, you can shoot that tangled and suspend everything in a big area. It is super satisfying and a different way of playing the game. Let's get into the actual build, artifact mods, and weapons. For your dodge, we're going to be using Gambler's Dodge. Dodging near enemies fully recharge your melee ability. While the normal Strand melee right now isn't that strong, it's going to get buffed next season, so it will be a lot better, but it also helps regenerate our grenade energy. Speaking of the Strand melee, you throw a rope dart that bounces between targets, damaging and severing them. The dart will return to you once it's done, returning melee energy to you for each target hit. You can also catch the dart on return to get more energy back. As of right now, we only have 2 aspects, but these aspects are just fine. Additional grenade charge, which will give you 2 grapples, so you pretty much will always have a grapple ready to go. And Ensnaring Slam is really good for suspending things if you don't have a tangled to do it. For our fragments, for the first one, we're using Thread of Propagation. Powered melee final blows grant your Strand weapons unraveling rounds, which this works nicely with the grapple because it counts as a powered melee if you get that melee off at the end of it. Next, Thread of Generation. Dealing damage generates grenade energy. This is super helpful to constantly have a grenade up because you'll have 2 charges, so you can just always have grenade energy. This stacks really nicely if you have a weapon with Demolitionist. Your last 2 fragments can be swapped out for other fragments, but I found this to be pretty fun to use. Thread of Finality. Finisher final blows create threadlings, paired with Thread of Evolution. Threadlings travel further and deal additional damage. So essentially with Assassin's Cowl, if you can get a finisher off, you're going to heal yourself, go invisible, you're going to create threadlings, and they're going to do quite a bit of damage, which if they don't kill the enemy, they'll be low enough to finish that enemy, which you'll be able to just keep repeating. It'll be just a chain of threadlings and finishing. As far as weapons goes, you want to use anything Strand related. So Quicksilver Storm's a good one. If you have an Immortal, that's great. Even the Neomuna submachine gun, sniper, either the Raid auto rifle, sidearm. Sidearm's got a pretty big buff, so they're pretty good now. If you happen to have a weapon with Demolitionists, it's going to go super well with this build, so the Immortal. As far as your energy weapons go, you want to be using a Void energy weapon. Preferably one with the stabilizing rounds or repulsor brace. As far as your powered weapons go, it's going to be very situational on what activity you're doing. If you need more boss DPS, more ad clear, just pick what you want to use. In your artifact, you're definitely going to want multi-siphon mods, authorized mods, grenade, void, and strand. In that third column, you're going to want untangler. Destroying a tangled with a strand weapon suspends targets damaged by the explosion. So once you grapple melee in, you kill something, it's going to create a strand and it's going to make you go invisible so you can kind of back away from that area. Then you can shoot the tangled and just suspend everything. Volatile flow, because we're using void weapons, so anytime you pick up an orb of power, it's going to grant your void weapons volatile rounds. In that fourth column, we're going to be using counter weave. When you or a member of your fire team stuns or defeats a champion, you gain energy for your least charged Strand ability. Also allied unraveling. Rapid final blows with a Strand weapons grant your weapon unraveling rounds with a longer duration near allies. And in that final column, threaded blast. Destroying a tangled with a Strand weapon creates a larger and more damaging explosion. All these things work really well together, so you just have to kind of test it out because it's a different way of playing. You're kind of more aggressive, getting in there, going invisible, healing, getting out of there, shooting the tangleds. You can also deal with all champions with this build, just because if you have like overload, SMG, auto rifle, you should be using obviously an SMG or an auto rifle. And then you can literally just suspend barriers and unstoppables. Just remember that anti-barrier unraveling rounds won't work if you're using it with a weapon that intrinsically already has overload in it. So overload, auto, SMG, those will not trigger unraveling for barriers. They can if you take off overload SMG auto from your artifact. As far as our mods go, we're pretty much going to be using anything that will give us grenade energy back, and also creating orbs of power with that dual void strand siphon. It's pretty cool how some of these mods work, like impact induction. Causing damage with a melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown because you're using your grapple as a grenade, but at the end of it, it's a melee, so it's working with each other quite nicely. As long as you're collecting orbs of power and getting armor mods, whenever you go in for that finish to go invisible and all that good stuff, you're going to be getting grenade energy back as well with this mod. So it all works in unison with each other quite nicely. I'm going to leave a dim link down in the description below if you want to check the build out that way. Get out of my way, dude. I'm trying to film. That's it for this build video, and I hope you all have an awesome day. Just remember to get outside and touch some grass.